service. Srila Prabhupada initiated Maharaj later in 1973, leaving him with many other Buddhas. 11 years later, in Manipur, the order of sannyas was awarded to Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, who was an initiating spiritual master who many devotees around the world. Maharaj moved to South Africa, where from 1980 to 1982 he served as temple president in the rural community of Cato Ridge. Thereafter, he did fundraising for the building of the Temple of Understanding in Durban, which opened in 1985. This extraordinary temple combines modern design with traditional Vedic architecture and is one of South Africa's. From 1985 until 1988, Maharaj served as regional secretary for South Africa and he then participated in an outreach project in Johannesburg from 1988 to 1991. From that time until now, he is mostly engaged in traveling and spreading Krishna Consciousness in an authoritative and accessible way. His permanent base is Durban. How lucky are we? After joining the DVC in 1998, Bhakti Chaitanya Swami's disciples have included Angola, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Swaziland, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Estonia. Furthermore, he acts as co-DVC for Mauritius, Northwest Russia, Eastern Siberia, Western Siberia, Latvia, South Africa, and Lithuania. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami has served as chairman of the DVC in 2002 and 2003, and as vice chairman in 2001 to 2003, and then again in 2010 to 2011. Within the strategic planning team effort, Bhakti Chaitanya Swami is involved in team building community. His special interest include filming, photography, and parikram, visiting holy places of deep spiritual import. These splendid outcomes of his interest can be seen in the impressive series of appealing documentaries of holy pilgrimages in India and festivals around the world, and in books such as Vrindavan, The Playground of God, and Traveling in the Service of Srila Prabhupada, volumes 1, 2, and 3. As I said in the beginning, a lovely personality. We are very fortunate to be in Maharaj's association. The Quali Guru Namahatta extends a hearty welcome to Maharaj. His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj ki Jai!
Well, thank you. What a warm welcome. We've got a really up and coming MC. Very good. Well, I'm very happy. First of all, I'm really happy to be here with you all. And it's been a long time. Oh. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a long time. I remember being here just a little before COVID, I think, or something like that. When was I here?
2019.
Was it? Okay, so it's just a little before COVID. I remember being right here. And as a matter of interest, are we in Stanger or are we in Quadrucruza?
Quadrucruza. It's not called Quadrucruza.
Huh?
It's not called Quadrucruza.
Okay.
Yes,
I was wondering why I wasn't seeing signs for Stanger. In the good old days, it was Stanger. Okay, well, thank you all for gathering and coming and taking the trouble to be here. I'm just so happy to be here with you all. It's really wonderful. Just really wonderful. Okay. Jai Radha Radha His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki, Shishi Radha Radhanath Ki, Sri Giri Govardhan Ki, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Sankirtan Yajna Ki, ISKCON Stanger Yatra Ki, Goprananande, all glories to their seven devotees, all glories to their seven devotees, all glories to their seven devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Now I just wonder, my voice is not as strong as our MC's. She's got a powerful voice. Should we turn it up slightly? Maybe. Anyway, okay? Yeah, I guess. Right, so devotees and friends, again, it's really nice being here with you all. I hope everyone's happy in Krishna Consciousness. And thank you for wearing masks. I think that legally you don't have to, isn't it? Something like that. But anyway, thank you for doing it. I'm an old man, so I have to be careful about these things. So anyway, I will read a verse from Bhagavad Gita. I'll read a verse from Bhagavad Gita. It's Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and it's chapter 10, which is titled The Opulence of the Absolute. And we will read verse 9. Right, so here we go. Well, first of all, I think you can just repeat after me, please. Oops. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Right, so Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, verse 9, here we go. Machchita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayantas Chamam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. And Lord Krishna is saying, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service. and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. And let me read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's a very nice purport. It's not so short, it'll take some 5 minutes or something, so please listen carefully, because it's very meaningful, it's really very profound, and what you'd say, very helpful. It's very helpful. So, yes, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Pure devotees, whose characteristics are mentioned here, engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna. Their talks are solely on the transcendental subjects. The symptoms of the pure devotees are described in this verse specifically. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees. In the preliminary stage of devotional service, they relish the transcendental pleasure from the service itself. And in the mature stage, they're actually situated in love of God. Once situated in that transcendental position, they can relish the highest perfection, which is exhibited by the Lord in his abode. Lord Chaitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of the living entity. There are innumerable living entities traveling throughout the different planets of the universe. And out of them, there are a few who are fortunate enough to meet a pure devotee and get the chance to understand devotional service. This devotional service is just like a seed, and if it is sown in the heart of a living entity, and if he goes on hearing and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, that seed fructifies, just as the seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plant of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into the Brahmajyoti effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky also, that plant grows more and more until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Goloka Vrindavan, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately, the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as a plant grows fruits and flowers, that plant of devotional service also produces fruits. And the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. This plant of devotional service is fully described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 19. It is explained here that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in love of God. Then he cannot live, even for a moment, without being in contact with the Supreme Lord. Just as a fish cannot live without water. In such a state, the devotee actually attains the transcendental qualities in contact with the Supreme Lord. The Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narrations about the relationship between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees, as stated in the Bhagavatam itself, particularly in the 12th canto, chapter 13, verse 18, which says, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. In this narration, there's nothing about material activities, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and his devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literatures, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association. And let me just read the verse again. Machchita madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantas chamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Om Vishnu Krishna Krishna Mutale Shivati Bhakti Vedanta Swanamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhastitya Deshatani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So devotees and friends, I just want to say, I have been missing you. I have been missing you from that time in 2019 when I came here. That was one evening, I think. It was really nice. And before that, I came a few times when we had our programs in the temple over there, overlooking the road as it goes around. Yeah, I went there a few times. And while all this COVID, just unfortunate sort of nonsense has been going on, from time to time I was thinking, when will we come back to Stanger and see the devotees and get together with the devotees? It's an interesting thing about Krishna consciousness that there's the idea of meeting and separation. You meet together, particularly with devotees, and then sometimes you're separated from them. And the tendency would be to think that the meeting, when you meet together, that's the nicest. When you get together, you can be together and spend some time together. But actually, Lord Chaitanya, the most recent incarnation of Krishna, of course, he emphasized that actually separation is higher or more blissful, more happy than meeting. It's a little difficult to comprehend. But there's a special sweetness in separation in remembrance and thinking about whoever you're separated from. There's a special sweetness in that. And particularly when it's Krishna, who's the sweetest of all persons. There's a very interesting little incident in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, in which, well, it's actually referring to Lord Ram and Sita. Lord Ram and Sita, they visited that area where Lord Chaitanya appeared. Lord Ram and Mother Sita visited that area back in the distant past. The area is called Navadvip. It's in West Bengal, what is nowadays called West Bengal. And Lord Ram and Mother Sita, during the exile, they came to that area. And particularly a certain place in that area, quite famous place, is called Modadrum Dweep. Dweep meaning island. The island of the Modadrum means of the great banyan tree. So they were there for some time. And one day Mother Sita, saw that Lord Ram was sitting there in meditation with his eyes closed, and he had a smile on his face as he was sitting there and meditating, just very peaceful and very absorbed internally. And she asked him, when he came out of that meditation, she asked him, what were you thinking about? What were you thinking about? You seemed to be particularly happy. So Lord Ram said, yes, I was thinking of the most wonderful thing. I was thinking how I am going to give you some special mercy, a special blessing, some special mercy. Yes, I was thinking how this is going to happen. And Mother Sita said, oh, please tell me, what is this special mercy? And Lord Ram said, the special mercy I'm going to give you is I'm going to deepen our relationship. Our relationship is already deep, but I am going to deepen our relationship I becoming separated from you. And Mother Sita said, what? That's not nice. You're going to deepen our relationship by us being separated? That's not nice. And Lord Ram said, no, actually it's very nice, because then we just become more deeply absorbed in thinking of each other and remembering each other internally. Because, when you meet, the closest you can get to a person is you can embrace them and hold them to you. But when you think about someone in a mood of love and affection, when you think about them, then they are within you. Not just outside like you're embracing them. They're actually within you. They're within your heart. So the connection is closer. And Lord Ram, he said, I wanted to do it earlier when I was told I was exiled. But then you insisted on coming. You insisted on coming, so I couldn't give it to you. But now I'm going to give it to you. We are going to be separated. And sure enough, not long after that, Ravana came and kidnapped Mother Sita. And when she was there in Lanka, in the Ashok grove, she was just totally absorbed in remembering Lord Ram. And that connection within the heart was deeper than it had been before, ever. So it's just an interesting little point that, because of the whole COVID phenomenon, so many of our devotees, even in the same towns, they've not been able to get together much. But then when they got together after that, then it was so much nicer. Just an amazing experience of reunion. So yes, Krishna consciousness, very important part of Krishna consciousness, which this verse here it's referring to, you could say, is the association of the devotees. The association of the devotees is such an important part and such a wonderful part of Krishna consciousness. And when there's some separation, then the reunion afterwards is better than getting together has ever been before. So therefore Lord Ram said, I want to give you a gift. I want to give you something. I want to give you the experience of our separation. So anyway, Krishna consciousness, there's a verse spoken by Lord Chaitanya in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, Mathura Das, Sri Murtir, Shraddhaya Sevan. It's like a list of 5 activities. First of all is Sadhu Sangha, associating with the devotees. Then Nama Kirtan, chanting the holy names of the Lord. And then third one, Bhagavat Shravan. Bhagavat is referring to the scriptures. Hearing the scriptures, like Bhagavad Gita. like Srimad Bhagavatam. Then Mathura Vas is the fourth one, Mathura Vas. Literally it means living in Mathura. Mathura's very sacred place there in India, in the greater Vrindavan area where Krishna was 5,000 years ago. Maybe some of you have been to Mathura, I don't know. Have you been to Mathura? Well done. Yeah, Mathura. Very sacred place. Krishna actually appeared in Mathura, in the prison house, the prison cell of Kamsa. And that place is still there, actually. So yeah, Mathura Vas literally means to live in Mathura, but in a broader sense, it means to live in a sanctified place, like Mathura, a place which has been made sacred due to the activities of the devotees and like that. Like here we are in the hall, and because you're using it for your programs, it's sanctified. It's sanctified. And I remember several years ago going and visiting one family in Isipingo, and I'd never been to their place before. They showed me their temple room. It was a moderate-sized room, sort of a little bigger than normal by just residential standards, not nearly as big as this. So in that room, you know what they'd done? They had collected our calendars for years. We've been making calendars for years, which have, quite big pictures of Radha and Krishna and so on like that. And so they've been collecting the calendars and cutting out the pictures and sticking them on the walls of this room. So there were so many pictures from floor level to ceiling level. You could not see the wall. The actual wall itself, you just couldn't see. And devotees and friends, not only had they done that, well, they ran out of space on the walls and they still had pictures left. So they stuck them on the ceiling. And you couldn't see the ceiling. It was just covered, literally, completely covered in these sacred pictures. So, living in a place like that is Mathura Vas, living in a sanctified place. So we can, and I know many of you have, also in your houses, you have a temple room, you have pictures around of the Lord and so on and so forth. So that means that your house is now a sacred place. So that was the fourth item. And then the fifth item is Shri Murtir Shradaya Seva, to serve the deity form of the Lord. Shradaya, with faith. Shradaya Seva, to render service in a faithful mood to the deity form of the Lord. And it applies also when you have pictures on your altar. Sometimes some devotees, they think that having pictures is not, it'd be better to have some actual deity. some actual carved deities on the altar, it would be more authentic or more spiritual or something like that. But actually it's not true. Just to have pictures is fine. It's completely spiritual, because the Lord and whoever the different personalities, they're present in the pictures. They're present in the pictures. And you can talk to them and they'll hear you. And you know, if you are advanced enough, they may, when you talk to them, they may reply. But you have to be more advanced for that. It doesn't happen much. But it happens because they're present. They're actually present. It's not just some ink on paper or, you know, something manufactured by a machine, a printing machine. It's the personalities are actually present, and they're watching you, and they hear, they see and hear what's going on. Whereas if at home, you know, you have some pictures of your family or friends, just pictures like that, or, you know, maybe even some movie stars if you like Bollywood. What's his name? Oh, anyway, you know better than me. What's this? Madhuri Dixit, right? Is she still famous?
Yeah.
She is. She must be getting old now. And what's the other one, the Muslim one? What's his name? Shahrukh. Shahrukh Bhai. Anyway, you know about that more than me. And Amitabh Bachchan, is he still alive? Still alive, okay. So you might, some people, they have photos of these types of people. But the people, in those cases, the person is not present. The person is not present. If you speak to the picture of Shah Rukh Khan, Shah Rukh will not hear you because he's not there. It's just an artificial representation sort of thing, yeah. But the Lord and His devotees, the devotees also, not just the Lord, but the devotees also, like Srila Prabhupada's pictures there, they're present. They're actually present. No less than if they were to actually walk in through the door just like we are here. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes we give a little example that a husband is going to work in the morning and his wife asks him, "What would you like for dinner tonight?" And he says, "I'd like, you know, something, maybe, I don't know, kidney beans with some rice and dal and something. Kidney beans. Yeah, with some rice and dal and a roti. Please make that for me, for this evening." But then, during the day at work, he changes his mind. And he thinks, you know, kidney beans, how many times have I had kidney beans? And rice and roti and dal and so on. I want something different. I want, how about, I don't know, Are you familiar with butter paneer? You are familiar with butter paneer? Yes. I want some butter paneer and a pizza. How's that? Cross-cultural. I want some butter paneer and a pizza. And so he doesn't phone his wife up to say, if you could please, can you do these things? He's got a picture of his wife on his desk at work. He just speaks to the picture. I've had enough kidney beans for the next while. Let's not have kidney beans and rice and dal. Make me some butter paneer and a pizza. Thank you. He says that to the picture. And then that night he goes home. And what do you think he gets for supper, for dinner? What do you think? Kidney beans. Some kidney beans. And parboiled rice. And dal. And he says to his wife, but why did you make this? Don't you remember I told you? I told you I want some butter paneer and pizza. And she says, what? You didn't tell me, you didn't call me. He said to the picture that she's not present there. It's just an artificial representation. But here the pictures, you speak. You speak to Srila Prabhupada, he hears. You speak to Radha and Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, you speak to any of them. They hear because they're present, because they're transcendental persons, they're spiritual persons. They're not just ordinary people like you and me. So to have the association with spiritual persons, the Lord himself, or even just the devotees, to have the association of the devotees is a very important and very wonderful part of Krishna consciousness. And therefore it's good that we're getting back together again. I guess for a while the program stopped, is it? Yeah, I guess so. All over it was like that. But now we're having regular programs, is it?
We will continue. We'll continue soon.
Okay.
We're having house programs, but we want to come back to the hall.
Right, okay. Yeah. So I mentioned that list of 5 activities: Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, Mathura Vas, Sri Murtir, Shradaya, Sevan. So Lord Chaitanya emphasizes those 5 activities. He says these are the most important and most effective and most wonderful activities in Krishna consciousness. They're the best. They're the best and the most effective in reawakening our spiritual consciousness, our spiritual natures within our hearts. But it's interesting, the first one is Sadhu Sangha, or the association of the devotees. And in a sense, it's the most important of all of them, because the second one is Nama Kirtan, to chant the holy names, like our MC was doing earlier. It was you, right? You were singing, yeah. That was good. It was really nice. So, when you're all together, there's 50 of us or so, and there are instruments, and you're singing together. It's really nice. I mean, it has a warming effect on the heart. But what if you just had a kirtan on your own? Just you, alone. It's not the same as when you get together with the other devotees. So chanting the holy names, even though in and of itself, it's such an important and wonderful activity, but you need the association of the devotees for it to be deeper. And if you just do it on your own, that's okay. It's good, it's not bad. But still, it becomes enhanced so much when you do it in the association of the devotees. And Bhagavat Shravan, hearing from the scriptures, from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and so on, the different literatures that we have, scriptural literatures, reading and hearing from them is enhanced also when it's done in the company of devotees. Let me just tell you a little experience I had quite some years ago, back in 1991. I went to a seminar. In India, in Vrindavan, a seminar for 1 month on Nectar of Devotion, one of our literatures, scriptural literatures. Nectar of Devotion. That was 1991. And I had read the book already, maybe 5 times. I read it. At least 4, maybe 5 times I read the book. So I thought, yes, I know this book, Nectar of Devotion. But anyway, I'll go and take part. So I took part. But through the association of devotees, there are like 30 of us taking this seminar. And all the discussion, the questions and answers, and sort of exploring the subject, it deepened the whole experience tremendously. In fact, when I came out of that seminar at the end of the month, I felt like I had never read the book before. It was just an eye-opening and mind-expanding experience to study scripture in the company of other devotees. And then the 4th one is Mathura Vas. I talked about that, staying in a sacred place, or actually visiting a place like Vrindavan, like Mathura, a place like Mayapur, visiting these places. It also, the visit becomes enhanced tremendously when you do the visit in the company of other devotees, particularly those who know the area and can actually tell you about the things. It transforms the whole experience. Otherwise, you can be in some of these sacred places and you don't even know where you are. Yeah. You don't know where you are. But when you go in the company of other devotees, and particularly those who know about it, it enriches the whole experience tremendously. And even worshipping the deity, Shri Murtir Shradaya Seva, serving the deity with faith. When the deity worship is there, and the association of the devotees is there, it enhances the deity worship. And you see how beautifully the devotees have dressed the deities and decorated them and ornamented them and so on. The devotion of the devotees who are worshipping them is reflected in the deities. So in that way also, the association of devotees enhances deity worship. I mean, like here, it's done so nicely with nice flowers, all sorts of nice fruit. It looks really beautiful. Better than just having some pictures just standing there. So the association of devotees is like the most essential part of the practice of Krishna consciousness. And so it's good if you can have your programs regularly. It's really good. It will enrich your hearts and just enrich your lives. And therefore, one thing Srila Prabhupada said. Srila Prabhupada said, I have created ISKCON, this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I've created ISKCON just so people can get the association of pure devotees. Just so the association of devotees will be available for people, because they'll become transformed and their whole experience of Krishna consciousness will be so much more powerful when it happens in the association of devotees. And therefore I was thinking I must come back to Stanger or Chattanooga, right? You know what Shakespeare said? Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name will smell as sweet. Had you heard that one before? That's Shakespeare. A rose by any other name will smell as sweet. So whether it's Stanger or Chattanooga doesn't really matter. But the main thing is the association of devotees and the experience will be very sweet and very wonderful, and we'll get real inspiration from that. And therefore Krishna says here in this verse, Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 verse 9, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. And therefore it's nice. You know what? Sometimes we have seminars in our temple in Chatsworth Radharanath Temple. And we had one just a few weeks ago on what's called Vaishnav Etiquette. Means how we should behave as devotees. And I gave the devotees who are participating, the ones who are living in the temple, it was also being broadcast all over the world, but the ones who are living in the temple, I gave them a little challenge, a little, like a special exercise to do. I said, when you sit down the next time with the devotees to take prasadam, then I want you all to have a discussion about Krishna consciousness. Not just how are you, or, how's the weather, how's the family, and all this sort of You know what I mean? The small talk. But actually sit down. And one of you would have to start the conversation by saying something like, you know what I read in Bhagavad Gita last night? I read this and this and that. And what do you think? And then you start a discussion. What do you think? Good idea? I'd like you all to give it a try. Maybe today. If we're, I assume we're going to have some, oh yeah, there's some prasada back there. Yeah. Try to get into the habit that when you're in the company of devotees, you don't just do the usual small talk that people just do, but you actually have a Krishna conscious discussion. And you learn something from each other and you exchange your understandings. This is sadhu sangha. This is really the association of devotees. And, you know, there's a conversation of Srila Prabhupada's. So much of what Prabhupada said was recorded. I mean, huge amounts of what he said was recorded. Classes, discussions, and even just conversations. And one time, a journalist, an interviewer, met Prabhupada, and he was kind of very offhand and just, you know, not very interested, not really taking it seriously. And he said to Srila Prabhupada, first thing he said was, would you believe, how are you? And Prabhupada said, what difference does it make to you how I am? If I die, what difference will it make to you? Anyway, it's okay to ask devotees how they are. Because it's nice to take an interest in the devotees and how they're doing. But still, you know, this sort of talk in Sanskrit, the name for it is Gramya Katha. Gramya means from the ground. From the ground means from the village. Village talk. Just across the fence in the village. It's just, you know, there's often or even usually no real substance to it. And sometimes there's a little rumor mongering and talking about other people behind their backs. But we should get into the habit, and it's something we have to practice to develop the habit of when you sit down with devotees, particularly like that when there's some prasadam and you're sitting down taking prasadam together, then actually starting a Krishna conscious discussion. This is sadhu sangha, the association of devotees. So anyway, give it a try, see how it goes. Maybe you're already doing it, I don't know. But one way or the other, try to do that. And spiritualize, we need to spiritualize our relationships. Otherwise, our relationships will be, as devotees, will end up being sort of the same as our relationships with non-devotees who've got no interest in Krishna consciousness, just kind of material. So anyway, thank you for having us. Again, we're really happy to be here with you. We're hoping to come back again after a while. And let's really try to develop the Krishna consciousness of Islam, Stanger, or Quadrucusa. Okay. So,
there's some of the bigger books, but the smaller books, I've wanted to give the small kids. We have about 7 or 8 of them. So yeah, I'll request you to sign them and just give it to the baby kids.
Oh, really?
That will encouragement in Krishna consciousness. But
Okay.
a few bigger ones you can give it to the Krishna answers.
or Christian answers.
Yeah, there's few bigger ones.
I must ask that question.
You can ask them, whoever answers can get a book.
Whoever answers a question gets a book.
Yeah.
Wow.
These ones.
Okay. But I've got to sign some of them.
Now that's just a few for the small kids. Just
Okay.
a few for small kids.
I'll try.
These are the kids.
All right. So devotees, first of all, I've got three questions here. 3 questions. Let me answer the questions. If a person is doing the wrong thing, but he is a devotee, what do I do? That's an important question, because sometimes some devotees do the wrong thing, by mistake sometimes. Sometimes they just sort of become a little confused and they do the wrong thing. So if you see a devotee and it really seems, wow, look at this. This devotee is doing something wrong. Something should be done to help the person. Something should be done. So, it depends. This is a little subtle, devotee relationships. We also do seminars on devotee relationships. I did a seminar before COVID up in the Drakensberg for about 120 devotees, just on devotee relationships. I think it was 3 or 4 days, different aspects of devotee relationships. And yeah, it's very sort of sensitive. If you see a devotee apparently doing something wrong or clearly doing something wrong, someone needs to intervene to help the devotee. But it depends who would be the most suitable person. Because particularly if you are younger or just junior in terms of how much time you've been a devotee, if you start going in and just telling people, other devotees who are more senior, that you're doing something wrong, they may not appreciate it. They may become offended. Even if what you're saying is right, they may still become offended. So therefore, if you see a devotee doing something wrong or something you think is wrong, you have to think, who would be the most suitable person around who could go to that devotee and very nicely speak to them and help them deal with this situation? Who will they listen to? That's really important. Who will they listen to so that the person who is doing the wrong thing will not think, who do you think you are telling me what to do? But they'll actually think, some more senior person who they respect is very nicely giving them advice. Then hopefully they'll think, oh yes, I must take note of this, and I must modify my behavior. You know, one thing we say is, in Krishna consciousness, one of the most sensitive things is correcting fault. Correcting fault in others is a very, very sensitive thing. You don't want to just walk in and say, hey, what are you doing? Something like that. And 90% of the time, at least, it will not work. But the person will just become upset and, it will have a negative effect. All right, so now here's the second one. Could you please enlighten us with a brief description of Chaturmasya and its significance? Chaturmasya, literally, if you translate the word, the term, then it means 4 months. It just means 4 months. Chaturmasya, 4 months. And it's 4 months in the year in which each month, for 4 months, each month, traditionally going back into the past, the practice was that the devotees would restrict themselves from eating one sort of thing each month. 1 month, milk, no milk. 1 month, no yogurt. 1 month, no like spinachy, like meaty herbs or watercress or just spinach. Those green leafy vegetables. For 1 month, none of that. And 1 month, what is it? Urad dal. If you're familiar with urad, the white dal. So each month, one of these things. And it was done. It was done on quite a large scale, going back into the past. As austerities. Just to restrict yourself and maybe try to make you a little more self-controlled, something like that, when it comes to your eating. However, devotees and friends, listen to this. Srila Prabhupada, who's our Acharya, which means he teaches, he taught, by his examples, his practical actions were lessons, not just what he said, not just what he said, but his activities, we could learn from them. And even though this period, 4 months, with these restrictions, 1 each month for 4 months, even though they're there in our calendar, Prabhupada did not observe them. He didn't bother, because they're not really very important. You can observe them if you like, but you don't have to. And indeed, there's a sort of little famous story. Srila Prabhupada was asking, he asked, during that period, he asked the devotee who was cooking his lunch, what are you going to cook? And the devotee said, well, this and this and this. And Prabhupada said, well, could I have some spinach? And the cook said, Prabhupada, this month we're not eating spinach because it's Chaturmasya. And Prabhupada said, oh, do you follow that? Yeah, the famous little incident. Oh, do you follow that? So You can if you like, but it's not critical. It's not like Ekadasi. You all know Ekadasi, I imagine, the 11th day of the waxing moon and the 11th day of the waning moon. That's the Ekadasi. Ekadasha in Sanskrit means 11. 1 and 10. Ekadashi. So now that we have to follow. That we have to follow. No grains. No rice, dal, like roti, wheat, things made from wheat. That we have to follow. But Chaturmasya, it's not really very important. It's more like optional, really. If you want, you can do it. Yeah. Okay, so here we have the last question. Can we explain the importance of chanting the Maha Mantra in Kali Yuga? Yeah, well, I assume you're all pretty much familiar with that, but anyway, the thing is, the principle is that in each age, in each yuga means age or period of time, there are 4 yugas. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. 4 yugas or ages. Kali is the last one, and it's the worst one, and we are in it right now. I think we've all noticed that life is not easy nowadays. It's really not easy. And if you look around the world, you see there's so much pain and misery and just horrible things happening. So it's Kali Yuga. But in each age, there is a particular religious activity which is recommended as being the most effective for God realization in that particular age, that particular period of time. In the Satya Yuga, which was like a golden age, it was silent meditation on God. In the second age, Treta Yuga, it was fire sacrifice, Hava. It was Hava. In the third age, Dwapara Yuga, it was temple worship. But, extremely elaborate temple worship. In Kali Yuga, the recommended activity is chanting the holy names of the Lord. And particularly because it's so easy. Anyone can do it. A child can do it. Anywhere, anytime. It's not, a sophisticated or complicated activity. It's just absolutely simple to be done anywhere and any time. And seeing this age is so difficult. We need something which is simple and easy, and it's not going to be too demanding for us. So that chanting of the names of the Lord, particularly the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna Mantra, that's what's recommended for this age, for God realization, because it's so simple. We do the other activities. Those who have second initiation, in ISKCON we have mainly 2 initiations. The first one is where you get a spiritual name and You take certain vows. That's the first one. The second one, the second initiation, you are given 7 Gayatri mantras. 7 mantras. Not just the one famous Om Bhurva Svatet Savitur, you know that one. It's Brahma Gayatri, it's a Gayatri mantra. Not just that one, but 7 Gayatri mantras. And then you must chant them silently in your mind. Otherwise, they don't have any effect. If you chant them out loud, there's no effect. So we do silent meditation, at least those who have second initiation. And then Havan, fire sacrifice, we also do, not regularly, but when there's initiation and when there's marriage ceremony, then Havan is performed. And the worship of the deity, that's very common, like we're doing here today. It's very common. But the main thing is to chant the holy names in this age. And it's so easy, even a child can do it. Like, what's his name? Shivan. Shivan? You can do it too, okay? Beta? He's sobered up a bit. Okay, good boy. Just relax. Okay, so now I've been asked to sign a few books and give them to children. Hopefully they're able to read.